I welcome us to the first AAA live class for the May 2025, I beg your pardon, diet. And I appreciate our coming, even though we are few, but then I appreciate our time. And after a hectic day at work, we're still here to learn. These efforts are appreciated, and I was just being appreciated by one of our colleagues before the second person joined the call. So it's a sacrifice all of us are making for our personal development. Jim Rohn used to say the biggest sacrifice you can make for yourself is personal development, which is one of what we are doing. Jim Rohn, of blessed memory, is an advocate for personal development. He's dead now, but most of his tapes, his teachings resonate louder than he was alive. So it's good we are doing the same thing, developing ourselves. Advanced Audit and Assurance is one of the papers, like you said, one of our colleagues said before we started the class, you need it to pass the ICAN, to become an ICAN chartered accountant. And it's necessary to understand how to pass the course, and also for practice, not just passing for exams, but also you may find yourself in the audit space tomorrow as an external or an internal auditor or a fraud investigator. You always need the knowledge. As accounting and auditing are Siamese twins. They are Siamese twins, in my opinion. So they work hand in hand. If you work as an accountant, you should understand auditing skills. If you work as an auditor, you should understand accounting skills. So they are both brothers, and they work hand in hand. All right, so we'll be taking our time to look at from the study text. Like I briefly introduced myself yesterday, I'll just do that briefly. I studied accounting in Ahmadu Bello University, where I had my BSc in accounting, and have a second degree also from the same university in business admin. And I have a third degree in treasury management. That's the MTM you can see on the screen, from Bayero University, Kano. And I'm also a qualified chartered accountant, and I also tutor AAA. So leveraging my experience, I work with the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, Kano and Umahia Diagnostic Center. I double as the internal auditor. So leveraging my experience for over 5 years on the course and working with external auditors, mostly the big four. And when you talk of the big four, you know what I'm talking about: KPMG, Ernst & Young, Deloitte, and PwC. Currently, PwC are our external auditors, and working with these guys as the third line of defense in the Institute of Internal Auditors third line of defense model classify the internal audit and the external audit as the third line of defense. So the first line are the process owners, the second line risk management, internal control, compliance. So the third line is the internal audit and the external audit. So having worked with them together on that third line of defense area for close to 5 years now, I'll be leveraging this experience to bring to bear on the course, not just from the theoretical aspect, but from the practical aspect. And I believe you're going to get value, maximum value, not just to pass the exams, but to also understand how to use it in real life applications. Okay, so having introduced myself and a little bit of what I do, on the screen, I'll be showing us the table of contents on the study text, the official study text of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, which is our Bible. That's our official Bible we'll be using that will be guiding us. We'll be using it totally, wholesomely to address the live classes. Okay, so for the first class, or for the first chapter, or the first module, we'll be looking at the meaning of audit and assurance, which is what we are going to be looking at practically today. And the meaning of audit and assurance is an overview of the definition of audit and assurance, emphasizing the importance of providing confidence, or call it comfort, to stakeholders, maybe the board of directors, investors in a company. So this meaning or audit and assurance covers the role of audits in verifying the reliability of financial statements and differentiate between audit levels, audits, then maybe other reviews that are not audits, then agreed upon procedures. So students or you guys will explore audit as an independent examination and assurance as a broader concept involving non-audit engagement. So that's what we'll be looking at today. And I'll be providing examples that will resonate with us practically, not just the theory, but examples from real life scenarios that have happened. We'll also take a short test of an OBJ of maybe 5 questions that are at the back of the study text to just test if we are following through and we understand the chapter. So that will be very brief after the class. Okay, so the second chapter will be looking at the regulatory environment. The regulatory environment. We'll be discussing the laws and the regulations, standards governing audits in Nigeria and internationally. We're looking at the Companies and Allied Matters Act, which is CAMA, the International Standards on Auditing, ISA, and the International Financial Reporting Standards. Emphasis is on understanding the role of professional bodies like the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, which you are also a member, a student member, and an associate member. Very soon you'll be upgraded to membership once you are done with your exams. And that is why most of the time I address people on the platform as ACA, because that's what I expect very soon. We'll be professional colleagues very soon. So we'll be looking at the role of bodies like the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria, FRCN, and the global adoption of the international standards on auditing. So that's what we'll be looking at in the second module, which is the regulatory environment. The third module is the rule or the rules of professional conduct. The rules of professional conduct. We'll be focusing on ethical requirements for accountants, which includes principles of integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, professional competence, and due care. Then you will also be examining the ICAN Code of Ethics and also the IFAC Code of Ethics, which is almost the same, and how to address ethical dilemmas. Okay, so chapter 4, we're looking at professional responsibility and liability. Professional responsibility and liability involves or will be covering the auditor's legal and professional responsibilities, including due diligence, reporting obligations, and consequences of negligence. We'll be discussing liability to clients, third parties, and the legal framework protecting auditors in good faith engagements. Okay, so that's for chapter 4. Then chapter 5, we'll be looking at practice management for auditors in practice. If you find yourself maybe in practice in a big 4 or medium-sized audit firm or small audit firm, or you want to start your own firm of chartered accountants too as a chartered accountant, practice management is the topic that will be focusing on running a successful audit firm or audit practice. We'll be covering client acceptance, engagement letters, risk management, staff training, and quality control. You'll be learning about audit quality frameworks and their applications. Okay, so for chapter 6, we'll be looking at the audit approach. The audit approach. And this involves introducing risk-based and system-based audit approaches. We explain the importance of tailoring the audit plan based on client-specific risks, materiality thresholds, inherent control and detection risks. So like my internal audit plan actually is a risk-based internal audit plan. So this will be elaborated and talked about graphically in chapter 6. Okay, so chapter 7 is planning, audit planning. In audit planning, we would be detailing how to develop an effective audit plan. We'll be including the audit plan will include understanding the client's business, assessing risks, determining materiality, and allocating resources, human and also material. Planning ensures the audit is focused and efficient. That will be chapter 7. In chapter 8, we'll be looking at audit evidence. Audit evidence in the sense that we'll explain the types and quality of evidence required to support audit conclusions. So you will learn and we'll also explore sources of evidence, internal sources, external sources, reliability criteria, and techniques like inspection, observation, inquiry, and analytical procedures. Okay, so chapter 9, we'll be looking at evaluation and review. Evaluation and review. We'll be looking at, be covering the auditor's role in assessing the sufficiency and appropriateness of evidence gathered during the audit work. So you'll be learning how to review audit working papers. You evaluate misstatements and ensure audit objectives are met before issuing a report or your report. Okay, so chapter 10, we'll be looking at group audits. Group audits. We'll be focusing on auditing consolidated financial statements of parent and subsidiary companies. Key topics will include reliance on component auditors, materiality levels, and addressing intercompany transactions. We're looking at that in chapter 10. In chapter 11, we'll be looking at audit-related services. Audit-related services. We'll be discussing engagements that are not full audits, but they involve providing assurance such as reviews, agreed upon procedures, compilations. So you'll be learning how we'll be providing comprehensive teachings on how these engagements differ in scope, assurance levels, and reporting. Okay, so number 12, we'll be looking at assurance services. Assurance services involves the broader assurance engagements beyond financial statements like environmental audits, ESG, sustainability, governance reviews, or corporate governance reviews, internal control assurance. So you'll be learning how assurance contributes to stakeholder trust in chapter 12. In chapter 13, internal audit and outsourcing. Internal audit and outsourcing. We'll be covering the role of internal auditors in risk management and governance. So as an internal auditor, I think I will do justice to this with my few years of experience in the field. We'll also be examining differences between internal and external audits, which I've worked with very closely and practically with the Big Four for over 5 years, and also the growing trend of outsourcing internal audit functions. So is it good to outsource or to employ someone to man the role of the internal audit? So we'll be looking at that in chapter 13. Okay, so chapter 14, we'll be talking about reporting, audit reporting. So in audit reporting, we'll be focusing on preparing and issuing audit reports. Topics will include the structure of unqualified and qualified reports. We'll emphasize matter paragraphs and communicating to management and those charged with governance. And that's what we'll be looking at in chapter 14. And second to the last is chapter 15, which is current issues. We'll be looking at current issues. We'll be examining contemporary challenges and emerging trends in auditing, such as sustainability reporting, fraud detection, regulatory changes, and also cyber security risk, which is an emerging risk for a current issue. And finally, we'll be looking at application of IT or information technology in auditing, which is very important in our current times. So we discussed the impact on IT on audit processes, including data analytics, computer-assisted audit techniques, cybersecurity audits, and you'll be learning how technology enhances efficiency and accuracy in auditing. So these 12 or these 16 modules offer a roadmap for you guys to be prepared for deeper engagements with the material in the lectures as we go on. Okay, so that's the 16 chapters, and the main competencies on successful completion of these 16 chapters. You should be able to explain and advise on professional, ethical, and legal issues arising during assurance engagements. So you guys should be able to recognize ethical dilemmas, which is one of the main competencies. Ethical dilemmas are legal requirements in assurance engagements, which includes adhering to principles of integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, and compliance with regulations like that of CAMA and the professional codes of conduct. So you should also be able to provide sound advice on resolving these issues in line with professional standards. Okay, so another key competency or main competency you should be able to provide after this paper is to advise on various planning procedures involved in carrying out assurance engagements. Planning is actually critical to the success of any assurance engagement. So you should be able to advise on procedures such as understanding the client's business, assessing risk, setting materiality levels, developing an effective audit plan. This focus ensures ensures a focused approach that aligns with the engagement objectives. Okay, number 4, you should be able to advise on risks associated with assurance engagements and various types of business and relevant control measures to mitigate those risks. So you should be able to identify potential risks such as fraud, recommend controls like segregation of duties, robust internal control, audit mechanisms, automated systems to mitigate these risks effectively. So that's one of the main competencies you should be able to garner. And finally, identify features of assurance engagement reports and also be able to write relevant reports after concluding the assurance or the assignment on assurance engagements. So understanding the structure and purpose of assurance engagement is very essential. So you should be able to identify key elements such as the scope, conclusions, emphasis of matter paragraphs, be able to draft reports, qualified and unqualified reports that clearly communicate your findings and provide actionable recommendations. So these competencies ensures that students preparing for AAA are prepared to handle complex assurance engagements with professionalism and precision. This is very, very important. Okay, so having looked at the competencies, we'll be looking at today, Module 1, the meaning of audit and assurance. We'll be looking at this first chapter in this time we have for today, and this is our outline. We'll introduce the chapter. The first unit is the meaning of assurance, then the second unit we'll be looking at the meaning of audit and audit-related services, and we'll have chapter review, and we'll close. So I hope we don't exhaust the 2 hours, but I hope you get maximum value. Please pay rapt attention to what we'll be discussing. Okay, so let's look at the brief introduction or a brief introduction. So in the exam context, this chapter is a bridge or provides a bridge from the skills level. We have the audit and assurance, which I also tutor at the skills level. This introduction is actually provided there, but here is just going to be a reminder. So if you've gone through the skills level, you will have come across this little introduction. This will serve like a reminder of what transpired in the audit and assurance module. And if you came through the professional direct, then we'll be using this avenue to remind you of this chapter. At the end of this chapter, you should be able to explain the brief concept or the basic concept of assurance, audit, and levels of assurance. Describe examples of audit-related services, including reviews, agreed-upon procedures, and compilations. Okay, so let's look at the first unit, the meaning of assurance. So we have 4 sections under this meaning of assurance. We'll introduce the meaning of assurance, we'll look at assurance, examples of non-audit assurance engagements, and elements of an assurance engagement. Okay, so the first section, assurance is extended awareness of professional codes and fundamental principles. So you should be able to understand assurance in the light of understanding rules of professional engagements. So practice management, application of procedures are all products of assurance, and audit assignments, non-audit assignments, dealing with group audits, audit and audit-related service are all products of assurance. So critical evaluation of procedures and reports are all the job you perform to come up with assurance that the financial statements of a company you are auditing or engaged to audit are in line with best practices or not. So outlining current issues and developments in assurance is also part of the assurance we provide, or the work done to provide assurance. Okay, so what is assurance? Look at the second section. In an assurance engagement, a practitioner is engaged by one party. A practitioner is engaged by one party to give an opinion on a piece of information that has been prepared by another party. So a client, maybe a company, involves another person. So there are 2 parties, a client and the reviewer. So let's say a limited company and an external audit firm come into agreement, engage one another to give an opinion on a piece of information prepared by the company. So the company provides financial statements for the external audit firm to review and provide assurance. Assurance means comfort. So the opinion is an expression of assurance or comfort about the information that has been reviewed. A statutory audit, that is a yearly audit for public listed companies or public limited companies, is an example of a form of assurance engagement. So the shareholders of a company do not accept without question that the information provided in the financial statements by management of the company is sufficiently accurate and reliable, and that calls for an assurance service to be provided. So somebody needs to review it independently, review the financial statements to provide comfort that this information here is correct to some level of accuracy, or to some level, may not be absolute, because assurance cannot be absolute, but to some reasonable level, and or to some substantial level, that assurance has to be provided by an external reviewer. This is very, very important. Okay, so the statutory audit provides assurance about the quality of the information. So like the yearly audits we perform, where an auditor or an external auditor is supposed to provide an opinion, is an example of this. So the quality of the information provided to the auditor makes the financial statement more reliable for the user, and the credibility is added to the statements by the express opinion of the auditor, the external auditor. So because of the amount of work carried out, a statutory audit provides high or reasonable or substantial level of assurance, while other assurance may not be provided, or other assurance engagements that are not yearly audits may not be provided as high but the statutory one is an example of a high and a reasonable level of assurance to provide comfort to the company and the stakeholders or the shareholders that the information in the financial statements are correct and not materially misstated. Okay, so the level of assurance given by other assurance engagements will depend on various factors that are discussed we'll be discussing them in later chapters. Okay, so for the first introduction, we looked at the assurance and a brief job that is done around assurance and assurance engagements. Now, assurance is necessary because there are one or two professional issues that have transpired, and this has made assurance very, very pertinent and important. I will be mentioning one or two cases and examples that have happened. You can also verify them online. Like in the early 2000s, Cadbury, Nigeria, Cadbury, the FMCG big conglomerate in Nigeria, faced a significant audit and corporate governance crisis. The company overstated its financial results, trying to buttress the need for assurance. Now, you see that it's very necessary to audit financial statements independently from this case. The company overstated its financial results, leading to inflated profits over a period of several years. The issue was uncovered by their external auditors, at that time, PwC. They conducted a forensic audit, and the forensic audit revealed discrepancies and breaches in accounting standards. This event highlighted the critical role of professional ethics, independence, and skepticism in audits. The crisis exposed how lapses in adhering to fundamental ethical principles such as integrity, objectivity, professional competence, and due care can have far-reaching consequences on stakeholders and the shareholders of a company. It underscored the importance of maintaining skepticism and ensuring that audit procedures are conducted with due diligence, especially in challenging environments. So this scandal in Cadbury also emphasizes the need for auditors to remain independent and vigilant, avoid undue influence as an auditor from client management, whether internal or external audits, avoid undue influence. The fallout of this Cadbury case also increased regulatory oversight in Nigeria, with bodies like the FRCN strengthening governance and ethical requirements for professionals in the accounting and auditing field. It also served as a cautionary tale for auditors globally about the importance of strictly adhering to professional codes and standards. So key lessons and alignment with the studies we're looking at assurance, the awareness of professional codes. So the case reinforced the necessity of detailed understanding of ethical codes to avoid conflict of interest and ensure public trust. Another key lesson is practice management, like we'll be looking at in one of the models. Effective firm management and internal controls are essential to mitigate risks related to unethical practices. Another lesson is audit planning and execution. The importance of robust audit planning, skepticism in detecting irregularities during audit engagements was highlighted in that Cadbury case. Then reporting and accountability is another key takeaway. Transparent reporting is vital in maintaining stakeholder confidence and ensuring the accuracy of financial statements. Also, another lesson that was learned from that Cadbury case on assurance is current issues in assurance. The scenario of that audit, forensic audit result, illustrates challenges in maintaining ethical standards in complex business environments, especially with external pressures that arise during these engagements. So the case is a significant example of the interplay between ethics and auditing, and also governance in Nigeria. And this resonates with global principles for professional accountants and auditors. So this is very important. Take note of that example I gave, and it will help buttress the importance of providing assurance and also underscoring the role of auditors in bridging the gap between company management and stakeholders, emphasizing the significance of the audit opinion and enhancing financial statements credibility. This is very, very important and key. Okay, so let's look at the next session, examples of non-audit assurance engagements. So non-audit assurance engagement might include reports such as corporate social responsibility, environmental policy, employment policies, non-financial performance indicators. So these engagements have become more significant in recent years to the increase in the range of information provided by company directors in reports to stakeholders and other stakeholders on the other hand. So non-assurance engagements that are not audit related, but to provide assurance in other areas with non-financial information are prevalent these days, especially the areas of corporate responsibility, environmental reporting. They help provide comfort that the organization is not just financially stable, but also economy or environmentally friendly. And the resultant effect of these audits for non-assurance engagements has extended the information to the other party who is providing or asking for the engagement. So auditors can provide assurance by giving an opinion about the information in this report. So the same auditors that provide assurance services on statutory audits can also do non-assurance engagements to provide an opinion on that. So non-assurance engagements have in recent years really been growing the same way assurance engagements have been growing or have been over time. So if you look at the case scenario of MTN in Nigeria, a notable example is MTN, the mobile telecommunications network, the giant from South Africa. They engaged in corporate social responsibility. If you see their yearly financial reports, you'll see a separate section on CSR reporting and assurance provided. So that's an example of a non-assurance engagement. Annually, MTN publishes sustainability reports highlighting its commitment to community development, environmental protection, and ethical business practices. So in recent times, we've seen third-party auditors provide assurance on this report to enhance stakeholder confidence in the accuracy and integrity of the information disclosed. So this assurance agreement covers areas like the MTN's environmental footprint reduction initiatives and contributions to education through the MTN foundations. So this assurance process involves reviewing MTN's data collection methods, verifying adherence to GRIs, global reporting initiatives, global sustainability reporting, and also confirming the implementation of CSR activities as claimed in their reports. So the independent opinion reassures stakeholders, including investors, regulators, and the public about the company's commitment to its stated social and environmental goals. Okay, so that's MTN in Nigeria. If you look at financial reports or statements by global companies like Apple, Microsoft, they also seek assurance. You see statements on their financial statements. If you Google them and download and read, you see environmental and social impact disclosures. So for example, Microsoft uses assurance providers to validate its diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, and also carbon neutrality claims. So that DEI is one way Microsoft provides assurance to validate what it does. So these engagements ensure that the reported progress aligns with company policies and global benchmarks. So you will notice that the trends reflect the growing significance of non-audit engagements as stakeholders, shareholders, investors increasingly demand reliable non-financial information that impacts corporate governance and the reputation and long-term value of a company. So as much as assurance engagements are important, lately the growing importance of non-audit assurance engagements are also really of interest to stakeholders. Okay, so let's look at the fourth element, or the fourth section in the meaning we are looking at of assurance. We'll be looking at the elements of an assurance engagement. So the element consists of 5 elements. We have the three-party relationship, and this three-party relationship involves a practitioner, a responsible party, and also intended users. So looking at this three-party relationship, the practitioner, the responsible party, and the intended user. So the practitioner will talk about the individual or the firm. That's the firm of maybe chartered accountants or external auditors responsible for conducting the assurance engagement. So that's one of the parties. Then the second party is the responsible party. The responsible party includes the entity or the individual responsible for preparing the financial statements or presenting the subject matter. For example, management or a specific department, finance, accounts. So that's the responsible party. And the third party is the intended users, the individuals or groups. For example, shareholders, regulators, investors, analysts, who rely on the assurance report for decision making. So that's the first element, the three-party relationship. The second element is subject matter. What is the subject matter? Now, the subject matter refers to the information or data that is the focus of the assurance engagement, such as financial statements, operational processes, risk or compliance with health or regulations. Sorry, I'm using health because I'm in the healthcare space. So compliance with regulations could be a subject matter. And this must be identifiable, capable of consistent evaluation and of relevance to the users. So the subject matter has to be identifiable, capable of consistent evaluation, and it should be relevant to users for decision making. So that's the second element. And the third element is the suitable criteria. Third element of an assurance engagement is a suitable criteria, which involves standards or benchmark used to evaluate the subject matter. So for example, you have the IFRS, ISO standards. IFRS is used in the UK, and the GAAP, the generally accepted accounting principles in the US. So these are benchmarks or standards, like for ISO standards, which covers quality management. So these standards are a suitable criteria. Then the criteria also must be relevant. This suitable criteria must be relevant. That means it's applicable. The relevance has to do with its applicability to the engagement. This suitable criteria must also be reliable. That means The reliability talks about provision of consistent results when this criteria is applied. Also, this suitable criteria must be complete. It should cover all aspects of the subject matter, completeness. Then it should be neutral, free from bias. It should be very objective. So reliable or reliability, relevance, completeness, and neutrality are the criteria. These criteria should have these qualities. This is very important. So the third or the fourth element is sufficient and appropriate evidence. Sufficient and appropriate evidence. So evidence gathered during the assurance engagement to support the practitioner or the auditor's opinion is very, very important. So sufficiency talks about the quantity of evidence to provide reasonable assurance. Then appropriateness talks about the quality and reliability of such evidence. So sufficiency is volume, quantity, while appropriateness is quality and reliability, ensuring that what you gathered or the evidence is credible and relevant. This is very, very important. So after sufficient and appropriate evidence have been gathered, and then the last element is reporting, the assurance report. The assurance report is the formal document issued by the practitioner at the conclusion of the engagement. This document communicates the practitioner's opinion or the auditor's opinion on whether the subject matter meets the criteria. So it should include the scope of the engagement, the criteria used, and the practitioner's findings or his opinion, whether it's qualified or unqualified. So this generally should entail what the document or the report should have. So looking at these five elements of assurance, we're able to understand that this framework defines the collective components, 5 of them, of an assurance engagement, ensuring transparency, reliability, and confidence for stakeholders. So before we go on our short 10 minutes break, we'll go for a short 10 minutes break to just stretch and come back. Let me just state an example briefly of this. So for example, in Nigeria, a bank can engage an external audit firm to perform like assurance engagement in compliance with CBN's directive on capital adequacy. So the practitioner could be one of the big 4 audit firms. The intended users of the report could be CBN or stakeholders. The subject matter could be the bank's financial and operational data concerning compliance with CBN's capital adequacy standards. And the criteria could be the CBN regulatory framework and IFRS serving as the benchmark for the assessment. So the evidence you could gather from this engagement could be transaction reviews, compliance checks, interviews with management to ensure validity and completeness of the information. And also the assurance report, the firm will provide either an unqualified or a qualified opinion affirming that the bank has complied with the capital adequacy requirements. So this picture I just painted resonates or applies graphically with these 5 elements we've looked at. If you look at the Volkswagen scandal of 2018, where Volkswagen engaged an external audit firm for assurance engagement on the effectiveness of its compliance program following the emissions scandal. The engagement was focused on evaluating corporate policies and adherence to regulatory requirements. You could check out the case online, offering stakeholders assurance of the company's efforts to rebuild trust. So these 2 examples or pictures are painted illustrate the practical application of the 5 elements of assurance engagement, and this ensures or emphasizes its role, assurance engagement's role in promoting transparency and stakeholder confidence. This is very important. Okay, it's 8:50 now. I would like to stop here and let's go for a 10 minutes break like we usually do and stretch, but please don't sleep off. So we'll come back at exactly 9 o'clock and we'll continue. In the absence of any questions for the first two modules we've taken, we've looked at the meaning of assurance. We'll be going into the next unit after the break, and we'll review and close on the chapter after we come back. So let's go for a short 10 minutes recess, and we'll come back if we don't have any questions. Thank you very much.